Hello, hello, what's up, y'all? What's up? Hit that thumbs up, y'all. I'm gonna wait for a couple more people to come in, and then I am going to talk about what we are going to be talking about tonight. So, one thing I want to say for those who are rewatching it and those who are watching in the chat, let's be mindful on our comments for this topic. I was really excited about doing this topic on my live because as somebody who is getting into the world of adopting children and wanting to homeschool children, there are no videos that really get in depth, a roundtable discussion from my guests, which is three couples that are a wealth of knowledge on this, on programming, what to do, how to go about doing it, having a Christian-based homeschooling. So let's make sure that we are mindful with our comments and that they are nice comments because my finger is real block happy today. It's been one of those days, and I will be blocking comments on both here and on the replay. Love y'all for watching. Thank you so much. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the three couples. Y'all know I always have this couple on probably maybe once a week because we're kind of attached at the hip. So Monica and Eric. Hi, Monica and Erica. And some other amazing background. And some amazing.
Wait, who was that?
That's his mom.
Photobombing on live.
Photobombing is so like 10 years ago.
Well, nobody's told her that yet, Eric, okay? Just learned about it. All right, the next couple, Nathan and Carmen, Jesus-loving homesteader. Hey, y'all. Not least, Mike and Chelsea from Vision Acres Homestead.
Yeah.
All right. So, y'all in the chat, hello. Hi, everyone. Am I missing your thing? Hi, Ronnie. Hey, doing better with Mora. Have I pronounced that wrong? I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm going to kind of pitch it over to them. I'm going to kind of start the conversation. And this is a roundtable kind of video. Again, we're talking about Christian-based homeschooling, why they homeschool, the benefits, the pluses, the downfalls, all that kind of stuff. So first, I'm going to pitch it out to everybody. What made you want to homeschool and why? I'm going to go, Chelsea and Mike, I'm going to go with y'all first.
Oh, fun stuff. Okay. Honestly, it had to do with the pandemic and the fact that my kids were forced to wear masks in school. So I didn't like that. And then I started getting reports from my children about what they were teaching in school, and that was the last straw. So definitely knew it was time to bring them home, even though I said for the longest time that I didn't have the patience to homeschool. So yeah, I just took the plunge and did it. So haven't looked back since.
I mean, homeschooling's a big commitment.
Yeah.
If you follow the same hours the school follows, from kindergarten to senior year, you're looking at 14,000 hours invested in a kid. And that's just seat time. And that's a little ridiculous. So the amount of time that this is going to kind of veer off a little bit. The amount of time that we let a secular world teach our kids is 14,000 hours. And as a Christian family, how do we combat that? We combat it with 1 hour a week on Sundays for Sunday school.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
It doesn't work.
No.
And I mean, we can be completely realistic here, and I'm just going to put it out there. Everybody says, not my area. You know, I have good teachers, not my area. Well, you and everybody else. I mean, it's across the board.
Well, that and God himself called us to be teachers. If you look at Deuteronomy chapter 6, I mean, he calls us to teach our children at home, actually. So, I mean, that's how it was up until the 1920s. Yeah. Everybody taught at home. And then the Industrial Revolution came upon us, and it was just normal for the father to leave, the mother to stay at home, and then the kids to go to school.
Yeah. And y'all pitch it up. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, to add to that, that's a great point, by the way, about, you know, that's our responsibility as parents to teach our kids. One other thing that a lot of people don't know is the fact that the Bible was actually the curriculum to educate people along the way. And once they decided to get away from the Bible as the basis for teaching, is where you start seeing all of the ideals, the pushing of certain criteria from outside in. And the reason why the Bible has always been the best curriculum is for the very fact that it is perfect in every way.
Yep.
And so when you teach your kids perfection through the Bible, it's not man's opinion, but it is, in fact, truth without error, then you cannot go wrong. And one other thing, because I see the pastor shaking his head, so I mean, he getting ready to start preaching up in here. Before we get to that, one of the things that I would say to challenge Mike and Chelsea, since it seems like they're relatively new at homeschooling, is the fact that a lot of times that's the problem, is people look at how many hours people are putting in at a school system. But as parents, if my math is correct, and I don't do most of the teaching, and not unless we're working with our hands, but what I would say is, if our kids are going to school for how long? 13 years?
13 years if you do kindergarten.
If you do the math on 13 years, it's not 8 hours. It's 24 hours that we have the opportunity to take and instill all these great values with our kids. And so my math, right or wrong, I don't know, over 113,000 hours that we have to instill into our kids good, wholesome material. And that is with your mind, with your spirit, and physically, which you can teach your kids, is an opportunity to pour in them. Because I have 2 kids now that are over the age of 18, and everything that I taught them is now being put into practice, opposed to them still trying to figure life out. Okay, now I'm done.
For the time being.
Sorry, his phone is going off. I always knew I was going to homeschool. That's kind of different. I knew this forever. I knew when I had children, I was going to homeschool them. I had plans in my mind. If I was going to be a single mom, I would homeschool my children still. I will find a way. I would always do that. And what's crazy is I didn't have a terrible school experience. I was honestly one of the good ones. I was in everything. I enjoyed school. I graduated with honors. I was prom queen. Like, I was everything. And then I was like, I knew. I got out of high school and I was like, I will never let my children do school, because I watched people crumble spiritually, emotionally, just like so many people struggled so bad. And I saw the way teachers were treating a lot of, not all bad, not all teachers are bad. And some of them have intentions that are good, but I saw some really terrible things in school. And my siblings dealt with a lot in school. I didn't have a math teacher for 3 years in high school. We had substitutes, and I still graduated with honors. I don't know. It was just so crazy that I was like, this will never happen to my children. And that was even before I even came to the Lord. So God, right now, of course, this is our main reason for homeschooling now, where my mind is where it is. But even before then, as someone who was not a believer, I knew that was not something that was going to happen for my babies. He just goes with it.
Yeah, pretty much. Most of the work. So I got the easy part of it. Like, we were talking about this live, and I was like, she works on the mind, I just work on the body.
Yeah.
She pours into them the education that they need, like book wise, and I do the best I can to try to teach them, how to work with their hands, like Eric was saying, basic life skills. Like, don't be afraid to work hard. Don't be afraid to, earn your keep by the sweat of your brow. So, that's kind of how we work it and everything. And like you said, the word is infallible. And I think it's so important for us to get back to those basics, get back to those teaching of the scriptures, and showing our children that this is the way to live the life. Like, if you truly follow the word of God completely and fully, you'll have so much of a better life. You'll live in peace. You'll live in joy. You'll have all those things. So I just think it's huge when she started talking about it and the curriculums and stuff, like I said, I kind of just went with it, and I was like, all right, babe, I'm trusting your judgment as the keeper of the home. I'm really trusting in you in that, and I'm going to be the oversight for it, and I'll be your coverage for that. But I've got to be able to allow you to do that as the mother of my children. So.
And I believe it's really important for you to have that support. You have to be on the same page with your spouse. You guys have to talk about it. You guys have to go in with the details. I know a lot of people who wanted to homeschool, but their spouse wasn't on board. They thought they weren't going to get the same that they would get in a public school field. And eventually the person cracked open, the facts about the hundreds of curriculums there are out there, the thousands of homeschool children who go to college and excel. Who are in college getting credits at age 14, 15 years old. And then quickly minds change with education. Like when you start getting educated about what you're going to do, and especially with homeschooling, you start to realize, wait a minute. So this is like the real deal. This is not just wearing overalls and being out in the field and just teaching your kids at home just because y'all can go to the nearest school. This is real stuff. Like anybody can do this. Just saying.
You made a good point. I think for somebody like myself who's looking in and wanting to learn about the homeschooling, I think a lot of people have the stigma that, homeschooling kids are awkward, or they don't learn as much as kids in school, or they don't do extracurricular activities after school. And I know from y'all, because I follow y'all. So can y'all touch on that, on how your kids are still getting kind of the same education, the still social interaction that kids should get, even being homeschooled, where you're saying, the homeschool, the awkward,
Can
take it, go to college, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Who wants
Can we talk about the fact that school is the only time that you are ever going to be in your entire life surrounded by 30 other people the same age?
That's true.
That is not a realistic life expectation of socialization.
Yep. So when they say
It's
socialization, it's not actually socialization in the first place. And honestly, I'd rather my kids get socialized from people who, like the other kids at church, because if they go off and go to public school, they are constantly around people who don't have the same beliefs as us. The kids that are taught that it's okay to lie and cheat and steal, you name it. I'm not trying to say that like all kids are bad. That's not true. But it's a product of our environment, and how they're taught and how they're raised. So I would much rather have my kids be socialized by parents who teach their children the same values and the same morals that should be socially acceptable. So
there are about three major arguments when it comes to homeschool, and it's who are you to teach your kid and what curriculum, and who approved your curriculum.
Yep.
Well, let me just say I'm their parent. We raise those children. We don't turn them over to the state for their education, because who are they for those children?
Because
They're nobody.
Kids. They're not the government's kids, and that's what the government thinks.
The other argument to that is going to be, they're going to be socially awkward. Like I said earlier, when else in life are you going to ever be in a room with 30 other people the same age as you? And to be honest with you, who wants their kid in a room full of all 14-year-olds? Like, that's a dangerous place to be. Like, mindset.
It's like, nah.
Nobody. And then, I said three. Where'd I go? I went with.
No idea.
I forget where I went now. I started laughing too much about the socialization. Who are you to educate? And is that legal?
It is absolutely.
What do you mean,
legal.
is that legal? And if it's not legal where you live, you need to move.
Yeah.
When California passed the law, when people were upset about at the age of which their children were being taught sexual education and certain things, when when the parents
That's true.
fussed about that and went to the state about that, the state came back and told them, if you send your kids to our school, you have no say in what we teach them.
Yeah, I'm not
I have a
okay
problem with that. Eric's politely raising his hand.
Yeah, a segue. Go ahead.
Well, because I didn't want to cut you off, and ironically enough, Monica does all the homeschool. I am referred to as the principal, so she does as I say. But anyway,
Just keeping my mouth shut.
and that's the way the teacher should be. Okay. Anyway, no. On a serious note, the thing is that teachers do get very upset about it because they feel like they have a better way to teach people. This goes back to my point earlier: when you start removing biblical truths away from the school system, then these teachers, which also think that they're better parents than you, will start telling you what should and shouldn't be done. And that is completely a falsehood. And again, especially with me coming up through public school, understanding one of the very fear mongering that they would like to do is to tell you that your kid will be socially awkward. And I want to be the first one to tell you that our kids are socially awkward. And the reason why they are socially awkward is because of the fact that they are around not 30 kids their own age, but across the board, interacting with adults of all ages.
Yeah.
They are an 8, 9, 10-year-old child that can hold an intelligent conversation with older people. So that makes them awkward to their peers because they, in fact, are the ones that cannot handle a setting like that. And so when you see the kids, and again, we have 8 kids, obviously, we have a range from our eldest being 22 and now our youngest coming up on 6, to see a 6-year-old being able to interact with a 20-year-old and hold a conversation. There is a reason. There is something that most people won't tell you. And I found this out years ago from a fellow homeschooler that applied to the what do they call it? The Air Force Academy. And I asked his mother, I said, he got accepted in. I asked his mother, I said, how did that work, knowing that he was homeschooled, but yet being accepted into such an institution as the Air Force Academy? And you know what she told me? She said, most colleges nowadays look for homeschoolers because they can analyze and have a better analytical processing in their mind, that they don't have to be told from step to step what to do, but they can figure out how to get to the end result without somebody holding their hand along the way.
Yep.
And so that, and my friend, is why homeschooling kids are awkward, because they can think like an adult. There you go.
And I just like to say, yes, all kids are bad. Okay. That's biblical too, just so you know.
Yes.
Kids are born bad and they're bad. They're bad. Kids are bad until you teach them to be good children and you teach them. And so, but the thing is that I don't want my 6-year-old around other little 6-year-olds, because other little 6-year-olds that aren't in my circle, they're just nasty little kids. And I've been around enough kids. We do Awana clubs on Wednesdays.
Yep.
We do Sunday schools on Sundays. And let me just tell you, these kids, some of these kids coming up in Sunday school, they're bad kids. But that's why they're there, because they need Jesus, just like my kids need Jesus. So yes, kids are bad. Don't even say they're not, because they are.
What Vodi Bakum, which is one of our favorite preachers. I don't know if you ever heard of Vodi at all.
I love Vodi.
But Vodi Bakum is a big old man, and he's great. He said all kids are born evil and they're vipers in diapers, and it's hilarious. He's like,
and when Eric says my 5-year-old, almost 6, can hold a conversation with a 20-year-old, it's not a nice one usually. Usually it's him like razzing. I'm like, what's your problem? Why you have an attitude? And I'm like, settle down, dude. You're 5. The 20-year-old could destroy you. You realize that, right? He's like, but he's being nasty, mom. And I'm like, calm down. So
Noah's 5 years old right now.
That's mini Eric, right?
that's mini Eric. Yes, that's the
Let me
baby.
just say really funny, real fast. This is why I love Monica. When we're shooting our podcast, randomly the Baltimore comes out randomly with certain words. They're like bad. Every time I hear bad, I say, oh, yeah, there's Baltimore, Monica. So I put that in there.
Hey, look.
Hello, Carmen's from New York, so
All right, look. Here's the thing. We just recently acquired this house lamb. His name is Sean. Monica has and I never heard her have such a deep accent before, but she called him Sean. Hey,
Love it.
bring it down a little bit. You're not even from Jersey, okay? Bring it down a little bit.
It's Sean.
I mean, she's way up northeast, man. I mean, way up there.
I think Michael's gonna say something.
Oh, me? Am I supposed to step in and say something? Okay.
I was just talking
I can get back on the soapbox and talk about the fact that us as a Christian household, it should be our job, and it is our job, but we should take pride in the fact that we teach our children a biblical worldview.
No, because we were talking about the younger ones having an adult conversation with older people. Our 5-year-old, when we were doing Upward with basketball and everything like that, he literally went to our associate pastor and was like, "Do you know Jesus is coming back again?" And I was like, "Oh, buddy," I said, "This is the preacher you're talking to, bud. I'm pretty sure he knows a good job."
And ironically enough, I was talking to the preacher about age of accountability, and we were having a theological talk about the age of accountability. And then my 5-year-old who's sitting with me just turns and looks at me and goes, "You know Jesus is coming back, right?" And then I was like, "I think 5 is a very good age." I tell you. But as a Christian family, I heard a stat the other day, and I had to write it down because I would have forgotten it. It said evangelical households, 70 to 88% of them year to year, depending, they lose their kids to the secular worldview by them being a freshman in college. So even if a school is not, you want to say that they're not anti-Christian or, no religion, it's a good school, we're losing that battle.
Yeah.
An evangelical household, if 70 to 88% of evangelical households are losing that battle with their own children, like I said, 14,000 hours compared to an hour a week, there's no comparison, and we're losing that battle. And those are my kids. That's not a battle I'm losing.
Right. Wait, how do I do this? Okay. Button that it's raise his hand or nothing. So I was okay. So I also wanted to bring a good point. When I was growing up, I was always so involved in school that I didn't realize that I had no idea who my family was.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing. It's so real. Now that I'm an adult, when I had my daughter and I moved back, I realized I did not know my siblings. I know who they are, but I had to get to know my sisters and my brothers. I was just meeting them because I never saw them. Literally never saw them. They were always at home. My mom and my dad, I had to understand that I didn't know any of their old school memories or how people are "Oh, my mom used to do this," and I'm I was never home.
Yep.
So I never got to have family things, and I would be so tired. I literally remember coming home at 7 o'clock, 6:30 because I was a baseball team manager too. I would get home late, and then my family would be out to eat, and I'd be at the house, and I'd go to bed. I did not know my family. And now as an adult, I'm slowly starting to get to know them really well. My dad is very, very involved with his grandchildren. So it's just crazy to think about. It's all those years, I literally was just in my house. I had no one-on-one relationship with any of them. I used to do homework at school because I was I don't want to do that at home. So let me stay after school and just do it at school. So it's just so crazy to think about. I want my children to know me. I want my children to know my husband. Mm-hmm. I want to know who they are. I want to know what they're interested in. I want to know my kids. And that's also a huge factor that I'm starting to learn. My daughter, people laugh. They're "That girl is on your hip." And I'm praise God. I was my daughter knows me. And I know her, I know exactly, sometimes I just know how she's going to react to things. I know how she's going to say. My son, too. I know him. So we know our kids so well. And that's something my mom literally to this day feels guilty about. And it wasn't her fault, but she would just be I feel I am literally just meeting you. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things. So just that's one thing that I feel it's very important in a factor of wanting to homeschool.
hand up.
Okay, so
You have to
based
keep
upon
your, they
be
didn't,
quiet. Shh.
they did
My
not call
turn.
on you.
Stop.
This
You
is the
talk.
problem.
My turn. Okay,
Yeah,
so
raise your hand in church.
so based upon what you said, look, Caleb is 22 years old. He's married. He's gone, right? He's out of the house. But let me just tell you, he comes home every weekend with his wife. They come, they hang out. My kids know me. They know me so well. Caleb and Luke graduated. They're not in college. And I've actually had people say to me with a frown on their face, "Oh, are you upset they're not in college?
Oh my goodness.
What are they doing with their life?" And I'm like, well, my oldest son works in the propane industry. He really likes his job so far, and that's his choice. He didn't want to go to college, and we suggested going to a tech school, things like that. Work with your hands, get a trade. If you're not going to 4-year college or 2-year, go get a trade. He wasn't interested at the time. That's fine, but do something. My suggestion to my 20-year-old, hey, man, I love you. You can't just sit at home. You got to have a job. So he has a job. He doesn't want to go to college. He recently visited a 4-year school and said, I'm not interested in 4-year school. I'm not interested in college. I like what I'm doing. Maybe that's not what I want to do forever, but I definitely don't want to go to a 4-year college. And my goal with my kids and teaching them is it's not just about schoolwork. It's about training them to be adults. And I want them to be adults that function in the real world and know that what I'm teaching them is how to be an adult, how to be a functioning person that's going to go out and get a job and going to go be helpful to society, and not helpful to an ungodly society necessarily, helpful to the Christian society, the world of spreading the gospel of Christ and telling others and being a role model and being a light in the darkness that is out there because it's filling the area. But here's the thing, your kids enjoy the fact that they're with you right now because there is a season of their life. But it's so good that they know you now because there is a season when even the kids that are right on your hip, they take a break and they hide in their rooms and they deal with being a teenager and you feel so far away from them, but they will come back. And they do. And there was a time when Caleb would just stay up in his room because it was loud down here and he didn't want to do it. He would rather do schoolwork in his room. He would just wanted to do his thing. Luke did the same thing. Just, I'm going to do it here. Abigail will go hide out in her room for hours if she can avoid the noise sometimes that are the kids. So enjoy those moments that you are training your child to know you, because in those moments, they're going to know you so much that it's going to be okay when they go away because you know that they'll be back to you. And that's the time. That's what you want. You want to be with them. And so anyway, just, enjoy it because the teenagers, they have those moments where they just need to be them and they're figuring themselves out. So
That's good.
I was listening. I'm on my phone. When you were talking and a Bible verse popped in my head and I'm trying to find it right now because I'm really bad about memorizing exactly where it's at.
Train up a child the way to go.
It's not that one. There's a New Testament almost the same, and I'll get to it in a minute. Let me find it.
Oh my goodness.
You got two preachers sitting right here. They probably know.
Yeah.
Did you want to answer
my bell, but
you answered it in there, but could you answer it on the screen too, Carmen?
About what?
The Ronnie's concern about.
Oh, yeah. Homeschooling, honestly, when you are first going into it, it is scary because it's like you're starting from a brand new, clean canvas and you just don't know where to go. But thankfully, there are hundreds of different curriculums. Some of them are video-based. So you can either pick your subject you want to do that's video-based. Like me, I'm terrible at math. Absolutely terrible at math. It's sad. So like I said, I didn't have math teachers for 3 years. So I use teaching books.
Yep.
So it is literally, it's like an online game. So with that teaching textbooks, they show you the lesson. Your child goes in there, do the problems they have. They give you examples. That's a workbook.
Yep.
Monica is a vintage homeschool mom. Nowadays, we don't need that.
I'm all.
Yeah, Monica's got that age.
This is actually a good segue into my next kind of question for all three of you. How does one go about, because I know there are thousands, hundreds, tons of curriculum that you can go into. I know on my behalf, when I was looking it up, there is a teacher-based and then there is the parent-based homeschooling program. I've heard a lot about the teaching textbooks. So how does one go about finding the right curriculum for your children, your family, all that stuff?
Sometimes it's just trial and error.
It is trial and error. He don't know. Don't call him.
It's just trial and error. Like I started with Abeka, and I thought that was the way to go because everybody talked about how great it was. Abeka for us did not work. It just brought tears and it was not good. Like my 9-year-old had like full on meltdowns, big time. And so I knew it wasn't where we wanted to go. And then I did a little bit more research into it. And Abeka was actually designed for a Christian school, like an actual school setting. And so we kind of just dug into looking at into different curriculums and basically weighing the pros and cons and all of it. And ultimately, I mean, we settled at least this year on Masterbooks, and Masterbooks so far has been fantastic. I've had 0 complaints.
But
so
you're
far.
not only doing the book version, you're doing Prodigy online as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I let the kids, because the kids are like really big into Pokemon. We used to do Pokemon. Like Pokemon was a big thing whenever I was a kid, and apparently it's still around. But my kids really like it. But so then they have this game on. It's called Prodigy. It's like a math game and Pokemon like mixed together. It's like battling different like you get to battle for different animals or weird things. I don't know what you would call it, but you have to answer math questions at that grade level in order to like
do an
attack, that kind of thing. So they really like that one. And then we also do Epic, which is an online book library. And so they and those books, they read a book, and a lot of the times they have quizzes that go along with it. So it's reading comprehension,
and then you get
it's
notified
fantastic.
of their scores, correct?
And then I get notified, and I get basically the results of their quizzes sent to my email. The Prodigy math game gives me a full-on like profile of the kids on what they're doing, what they're excelling in, and what they need to work on too, so I can know in which area I need to focus more on. So that's how we've learned. But honestly, it's trial and error.
Right.
So I wanted to touch on the comment. Mariah said, if you're the teacher, you can teach it in the way that makes sense to you. And see, unfortunately, that's how I think it's unfortunate because a lot of people think that way. And I think we really need to focus on how it makes sense to the kid.
Yes.
And so what happened was I used to be a teacher. I used to be a substitute teacher. I went to school for a couple of years, got my associates so I could go back and substitute while we were first married. And so I taught high school for an entire semester. I was a permanent sub. I had my own class. And after a couple of years of substituting, I got to this high school class and I loved it. I taught science and I just had a really good time. I had all the benefits of being a teacher without having to stay a lot of extra hours. I got to go, I didn't have to go to all the extra meetings and stuff, but I got to do what I really wanted to do. In my entire life, all I wanted to do was be a mom and a teacher. And so here I was 8 months pregnant with my first kid, teaching a semester in the high school that I had graduated from only just 4 years before. And being in that schoolroom, being in that classroom, I realized at that point, these kids aren't learning. Not everybody's learning. I've got 25 kids in a classroom and I'm teaching a basic science course and I'm teaching it the way I know, the way I've learned. And I'm reading this book and I'm teaching it. And I looked at some of these kids that just weren't getting it. And I realized you're not learning because your style of learning is different than mine.
Yep.
And you're never going to learn unless I embrace that. So I can't keep teaching it this way. And so I started to shift that a little bit. And even though I was only a substitute, that was my title, just a permanent sub. These were my kids for an entire semester. And I was going to do the very best I could. And I will tell you that after that, I never substitute taught again. I went home, I had my kid, I finished that semester out, I had Caleb, and I never went back to substitute teaching. I tried one time and I failed at it because I just had to run home because I didn't want to be out anymore. So, but the thing is that I've learned with each kid that I can't teach each kid the same way. Yep. And so while Caleb and Luke, they did amazing with teaching textbooks and all the Alpha Omega life packs. They did them actually. They did Switch on Schoolhouse online, but it wasn't online at the time. It was actually the discs.
Yep.
I'm old, okay. Switch on Schoolhouse, the old one, the discs. I did it that way. And as some of my other kids got a little bit further along, we would do online, and that worked for a little bit. And that's not working for us now. So we've backed off of that. And I've learned that each kid is so uniquely different. And each kid learns so differently. I've really just had to embrace that child. And because, like Carmen said, if Nellie's on your hip, you know how she learns. And, you know, when your kids are on your hip and your kids are around you and you know them, you're going to know how they learn. And you're going to know when they're struggling. Just like Chelsea said, tears, that's not worth it.
Nope.
Skip the book, trash the book and go. And so, Casey, when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you sit there and you look at this book and your kid's crying and they're freaking out. It's not because they're lazy. It's probably because you're trying to teach them in a way that they don't understand.
Yep.
And they don't learn that way. So you take that book, and as a parent, as a homeschooler, we've all done it. We've bought this curriculum. We're all in and we're so excited. And we're like, crud, this isn't for you. And you sit on a shelf.
No, some of them are not cheap. Like Becca cost us for just the 2 girls. It was like $800, and I'm like, I could have just started with master books, and I've got 200.
This is why you're a part of homeschool groups where you can swap out stuff. You learn about used curriculum. I have bookshelves full of curriculum, and my sister and I swap curriculum all the time. She's new. She's very young at this, but I'm constantly finding homeschoolers, and I'm like, hey, you using 3rd grade stuff? Because I need it right now. I'll give it back to you next year.
Yep.
That's kind of what I do because I don't want to spend the money on. I didn't have the money to spend on it. You figure it out and you swap. And if your kid's not learning, you scrap it and you start over. And that kid is worth it. And you learn it. And they learn it. And you move on. That's just my best advice when it comes to curriculums.
Yep.
I use 3 curriculums.
Yeah.
I use master books, I use teaching textbooks, and I use the good and the beautiful language. I learned that my daughter is dyslexic. So quickly, ACE, Abeka, any of that was not for her at all. And I immediately knew why. Like I could tell she was just, and she would get very flustered. She'd be like, I can't do this. She would cry. She would be upset. So I found out very quickly it was something. We tried master books, and it clicked like, I mean, amazing. She loved it, except for language. And that's because along with her being dyslexic, she actually loves to write. She loves to write. So master books was a little too slow for her because that was her strength. So with that being her strength, I switched to the good and the beautiful for writing and language because they're much more, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just a lot more for writing. And
there's no prompts.
And then the math with master books was good, but I'm not good at math, so teaching textbooks. So we love master books for science. Absolutely love their science.
There's so many experiments.
It's amazing. I mean, literally. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and be that mom with 3 different curriculums for one child because this is what works.
Yep.
And we're blessed. All of us on this panel right now are blessed in the fact that we have wonderful wives that are teaching our children. And we live in a household where our wives are able to teach our children. There's a reason that
You're good. Keep talking.
There's a reason that humans have taught their kids in a household forever until recently, and now, and this is exactly it. We can specifically build a program to teach our children personally, and I'm not bashing teachers at all. The majority of teachers, the vast majority of teachers, do everything and anything they possibly can to teach very well. The problem is it's mass production education.
It is.
Yeah. And it doesn't always work. There are those that excel in it, and then those that don't excel fall behind, and they fall behind hard.
Yeah, and see, the issue with that too is that it's all run by the government. Like the government is what tells the schools what they need to teach and what they don't need to teach. And see, that is fundamentally a huge issue because I don't know. Oh, that was loud.
Sorry.
But like, no, it was.
Connected to there.
Oh.
Fundamentally,
It's
as
just
a
not
Christian,
good.
Christ is truth.
Yep.
And all other truth we have, there are no truths, plural. Christ is truth. He is the creator. He is the truth. All other truth we find, math and science, are of revelation. The minute you take Christ out of school and don't teach that he is truth, you might be dancing a fine line. But that quote I sent on the chat earlier, it says the student is not above the master. Oh, there you go. Student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher.
Yep.
I'm Vadi Bakum again. He said, what did he say? He said, if you send your kids to Rome, don't be surprised when they come back Romans.
Yep.
To Caesar when
Caesar,
they come
yeah.
back Romans.
Yeah, there you
Good
go.
try there, bud.
Yeah.
Same difference.
But I was thinking that same quote.
I love him. He's articulate, way more articulate than I am.
I was going to say, too, if anybody has not seen that whole teaching, too, that's fantastic. It's called The Children of Caesar. It's by Vodi Bakum, and he does a fantastic job on explaining why it's extremely important to homeschool versus sending your kids to a public school or even a Christian school in that matter, too, because homeschoolers ultimately excel those in both Christian private schools and public schools themselves. So I think it was Eric that said it about the Air Force guy. They actually seek out people who are homeschooled because it actually jumps up their academic levels. So, I mean, at least that's what I got from all of it too.
Walking the text, is that what you were talking about?
To what?
Walking the text, is that the one that you were talking about?
Walking the.
You said, I was trying to find the link to put it in the chat of the video that you were talking about.
Oh, it's on YouTube. It's called The Children of Caesar, and it's a teaching by Vodi Bakum.
Casey's gonna hop off this live stream and go watch it real quick. He'll be right back.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like I was already sold on homeschooling in the first place, and I watched that and I was like, that just like solidified the reason why I needed to do this. And I mean, it was I don't even know how to explain it other than it was a God thing, because I mean, I went constantly saying I don't have the patience to teach my own children. I can't be around them 24/7 because they drive me nuts. Because let's be real, they drive me insane. And like, I mean, XYZ. I mean, I listed everything, and then I don't know. In 2020, at the very end of that year, I looked at Michael and I said, I think the Lord's trying to tell me that I need to homeschool. And that's kind of where it went. And I took off with it and immediately disenrolled my children from public school. So with us, it was just kind of a bam, bam type of thing because I wasn't wasting any time. So,
yeah, I was going to say that school, as someone had mentioned earlier about, how people get pushed through, it's it's mass teaching.
mm-hmm.
Coming from the Baltimore area, the average age of reading in Baltimore, there's a huge illiteracy issue up there. And the reason why is because they are not being held back, because there's no room to keep holding people back.
Yep.
And there's not enough teachers to teach. And so it's like everything is getting bottlenecked. And so what do? Do you hold everybody back? No, you just keep passing them through. So you have people that are not educated, that can't read, that can't write, that are being passed through. And then, of course, it's difficult for them to get a job. There's a huge disservice being done by government agencies, state and federal alike. And, the way that I look at that is that this is my opportunity to make sure that I'm doing my part.
Mm-hmm.
And so really teachers should be thankful for people being homeschooled, because it takes having so many heads in the classroom out. But what I would say to that is it's a lot of education that I've gotten has been distance learning. In the old days, that's what they called it. Nowadays, they call it online. And so the old saying, what you put into it is what you get out, is a very accurate statement.
Yep.
And that is true for all of homeschooling. You know, you have to look at the question for yourself as, what is it that I'm trying to get out of it? If it's just to free time up so that you can go out on dates or hang out with your friends in the clubs, probably not going to work out for your kid.
Nope.
But if your intent is that you give them the best education, then you are going to fall short, but that's okay. Understanding that you're not going to be perfect and you're not going to be able to give them a Harvard level education is okay. But what you're training them is to be able to think, to be able to process things, to analyze things. And as I said earlier, be able to get to the end result. As I teach my kids a lot of times, there's more than one way to skin the cat. So whether you start from the feet or you start from the head, at the end, all you're trying to do is skin the cat, for the analogy's sake. And, you know, when you teach your kids that there's more than one way to do things, and to be willing to try, because understanding that when you try, you're going to fail, and not to give up and keep working hard, those are the things that will push them through to be whatever they want to be. And really, that's the objective for teaching, is not to teach this child to be Einstein, but you're trying to teach them how to think. And as Monica said, how to be a stand-up citizen in this world. You know, our goal, number one, is no matter what they're doing, to represent God. That's number one. Whatever falls underneath that is totally between them and the Lord. I can't make that, you know, whether they're a lawyer, whether they're an electrician, whether they're a trash guy, none of that matters. That's between them and the Lord. I could care less. My job is to teach them how to think.
Yep. Point them to the Lord, and the rest it'll take care of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
No,
I wasn't done yet, Casey. Why did you take me off?
Does that look better?
Okay, now I'm done.
Oh,
It went to us.
Who's it going to?
I think that's a good thing. Honestly, I think it's a skill that's lacking in the public school system, because they don't have time to teach it, is just basic problem solving skills.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they teach it's one way. This is how you get to A or B square or whatever. And they don't really teach so much of the roundabout way to teach it. And I think that's important for us. You know, we teach problem solving skills. We teach, hey, how do you figure it out? And we give them a chance to figure it out. And just because they do it differently than the way I've done it is not wrong. Guess what? They just found a new way to do it.
Ooh, that's a hard concept to grasp.
Praise them for that, and you show them that, like, hey, good job. I never thought of it that way. That's awesome. And that's how you sharpen a kid's mind. That's how you sharpen anyone's mind. And I don't know if y'all touched this or not, because I've been kind of in and out, but there are a lot of things that we teach that are not being taught to basic school kids. You know, our children know very well about paying bills. They know very well about cost and effect. They know a lot about supply and demand. They know a lot about these things because we're showing them and teaching them every day-to-day life things that they have to know. They've got to figure out that certain things have to get done. You know, whenever you're at school for 8 hours, yeah, you're learning things, but there's a lot of things that fall between the cracks. And like Eric was saying, we're trying to raise up adults. We're trying to raise up the next generation that's going to establish the world around us. And if we're not showing them basic skills, if we're not teaching them basic things they need to know, then where does that really end them? They go out into the world and then they're sitting there trying to find an apartment. Their credit score is not really good. They can't change a flat tire on the side of the road. And they're sitting there trying to figure out how to make A plus B. And they can't do it because they were never taught this basic life skills of finding an apartment, making sure you have money to pay rent, making sure you can pay bills and all these other things that go into it. And it's so important for us to teach our children that. And I'm thankful that we have that opportunity. I really am.
We didn't touch this yet, but if anyone is actually looking into this for a grandchild, a child, wanting to be an example to your, your family, trying to show them how there's another option, look up your state's homeschool laws first and foremost.
Yep.
Don't just get up and be like, that's enough. Throw your book bags in the trash. You know, like, no. Like,
it's different.
Read and research all you can about your laws, your state laws, and see what you can do, because some of the laws, like we've discussed, it's a lot, and then some are not. Like here in Texas, there's very basic homeschool laws, close to nothing. You just have to make sure you are teaching them the basic subjects, and it can't be a sham. Like pretty much that's what it is. But then there's laws like in Washington State, or like up there, especially the north too, man. That where they have the harder laws. They want you to go to college yourself. They want you to take courses before you can homeschool your own children. If you are unable to move, just do those courses. Do what you have to do. It's 100% worth it. Just make sure you're looking up those laws. And as far as scared about the whole social aspect, because we could tell you all day that our kids are awesome, but at the end of the day, you're going to be nervous and you're going to be like, oh no, what am I doing? So there are things called co-ops. They're the church. And your children, if you're not already having a fellowship with other believers, you need to do that. Very, very important in your life and in your children's life spiritually. Very important. But co-ops are little groups where homeschoolers meet other homeschoolers and do an activity. That's it. There are outdoor co-ops. There are sitting and learning classroom type co-ops, once a week, twice a week. I have always known that I was not waking up at 8 a.m. and committing myself to public school. So I'm not committing myself to an 8 a.m. co-op.
Nope.
But that's
No.
no. Yeah, like it's just what it is. But you know what you're up for, and you're going to get to know your children, and you're going to know what they're up for. Do you want to drag your son who hates mornings out to a morning co-op? Probably not. You want to deal with that. But there are other options. There's so many co-ops out there. Make your own. If you feel like, hey, I'm free at 1 p.m., let's go to the park. No, let's create a co-op. You can do that. There are other mothers and parents out there who would totally be down for meeting at 1 o'clock under a tree down the street. I'm telling you.
The day's half over by 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock is a good time for a co-op.
No.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm the
The day is over.
I'm the mom that volunteered ourselves for a co-op that starts at 9 a.m. in like Greenville. I said it. Ugh. Greenville. Anyway, I gotta drive 30 minutes to a co-op that starts at 9:15 is what time it starts. And every Friday morning at 8:30, my daughter's like, Mom, we gotta go. I'm like, nah, do we really? I mean, we got an extra couple minutes, don't we? Yep. He's like, her alarm goes off at like 7:15. She's like, Mom, you should be awake. I'm like, I don't function until 8 a.m. You let me be, girl. 8 a.m. You better believe my butt is up. We are packing lunches at the last minute, getting everything ready so I can be rolling out at 8:30. That is the only commitment because it is a good co-op, I will say. It's parent run. There's 3 classes. The kids are great. Plus, we stay there for the rest of the afternoon because it's drama club too. Immediately following. My kids are in a drama club. I had my 5-year-old and my 7-year-old in a play recently, and my 17-year-old daughter was just in the play. So you have kids all the way up to, all the way up, all levels in this play. So these little kids know how to interact and be in front of other people. And it's cool to see them all interact together and be in something together like that. So that's the only reason why this one right here did that. But I'm all about the noonish co-ops. That's my thing. That's my jam right there.
I was going to say too that I'm sorry. Homeschooling isn't just for believers either. I just want to throw that out there. Like, you don't have to be a believer in God in order to homeschool. There are plenty of curriculums that you can do that are not like faith-based at all. And honestly, I mean, everybody tends to think that it's strictly just due to the fact that people want to pour the Bible into their children and all of this. But I mean, there's plenty of other reasons why people homeschool. Any type of disabilities, because a lot of the times public schools are not equipped to handle any type of disabilities the way that they should. Mm-hmm. And so people with disabilities a lot of the times need to be homeschooled because of this. I mean, there's numerous reasons out there for it. So they have plenty of curriculums that will help with all of that too. So I don't want anybody thinking that just because we do it, just, because we want to instill that aspect into our children.
Which we absolutely do.
Yes, but you don't have to in order to homeschool. There are other options out there.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I know you don't have to.
For an hour.
God willing, and your salvation relies on it. But you don't have to. I love you. I really do. But
but my point is that not everybody is a believer. Yes, I truly wish everybody did believe in God and would accept Jesus Christ. But at the same time, there are people who
We'll try to pull it back, Chelsea. It's too late. I got you, Mike.
Whatever. My face is turning red now too. It's okay.
Mike, you want
my coffee and just
I was saying earlier, there's certain things you learn in homeschooling that you wouldn't learn in high school or any other school. Like, people will be like, "Oh, do your kids really get a true education?" But in the very next breath, they'll put a meme up and be like, "I really wish somebody would teach me about taxes in school because this is kind of applicable to real life." You can't do that. There's certain things in life that you need to know, and there's certain things that, honestly, the state puts in there to spend more time because they have to hit a quota.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. Me growing up in the trades, one thing that I learned is on-the-job training. Okay? There is no better training than on-the-job training. Yep. So what better way to teach your kids about money than to give them a $5 bill and go buy a soda pop, or to go buy a bag of chips.
There's that again with that soda pop.
There's so many. I was saying that for all the Southern people. So here's the thing. Ready? We have our 20-year-old that had the opportunity to buy a car here recently, and he was looking at the price of it, and I asked him if he liked, because he did go look at it, and I said, "Did you like it?" And he said, "Yeah, I did like it." I said, "Are you going to get it?" And he was like, "No, I'm not going to get it." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because if I buy it, and I want to exhaust all of my savings, and then I won't have any money to do the other things that I need to do, like pay insurance and pay gas and pay for this and that and the other thing." And so those are the very practical things, or what a bill looks like, and having to pay that. We don't have to wait for a credit card bill, and hopefully you don't have credit card bills. But if you do, you don't have to wait for every 30 days for this bill to come in. They can understand what a bill is. Just tell them to go buy something at the grocery store or at the gas station. And that's what homeschooling is. Homeschooling every moment. That's why I said earlier, it's not about 8 hours. It's not about 6 hours. 24 hours a day. From the moment you wake up, going back to what Chelsea said, we are teachers according to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, that talks about teaching your children from the moment they wake up to the moment that they sleep.
Yep.
That is our opportunity to teach them every basic principle, and every one of those principles ties back to God and Jesus. That's why you shouldn't get away from the Bible.
But I will say, if you are a secular person that wants to homeschool your kids and you're watching this, that's still okay too. And like Chelsea said, you don't have to be a Christian to homeschool. There are groups you can follow that.
Wait, did I give that impression?
Yes. Okay. So what I'm saying is, yes, see, Nathan's even shaking to say yes. I caught it, Nathan. I got you. No,
let me clarify myself.
As a non-Christian, as a secular person, listen, I was just going to say that there are groups on social media. There's Facebook groups. There's other groups you can go and join. There's a North Texas secular homeschooling group that I've seen. I was looking up North Texas homeschooling groups one time, and there are ones that are particularly just for Christians, and there's other ones that are secular. You can join either one of them. You don't have to just this one doesn't say you have to hate Jesus to join the secular one. It's not a requirement to not love Jesus to join the secular one, but there's so many resources. It's just getting to know people so that you can join together with those people and find curriculum that meets your needs. And you may find that the Christian curriculum is a good curriculum that works with your kid, even if you don't necessarily get on board with it all right away, because you never know, that may be what works best for you too, and you may learn something. So
not all curriculums. What is it? Good and the Beautiful, is that the one?
Yeah.
That is actually written by a lady who is a Mormon.
Yep.
And we had, I'm not trying to get theological here, but Mormon and Christianity don't quite mesh.
Right.
And
in
reading into it, we had other people suggest it, and we're like, hold on a minute, because we do research before we dive into something. And like, is this something we want to introduce into our kids' world? And it's not bad. So my point is, not everything written by a Christian or a Christian curriculum is going to be so Bible verse, biblical science in your face.
In the head with the Bible kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
As
I think,
get into the Bible.
and I think that again is what supports homeschooling in general, is the fact that you are going to be around other people that are not necessarily lining up with what you believe. And so the question is, how do you use that? Well, you use that by showing them that people are different and not everybody's going to agree. And what you don't do is stomp your feet and cry and go make some TikTok videos. But what you do is you learn how to get along with those people. You don't have to agree with everything that everybody says.
Yeah.
You just have to learn how to get along that piece. And, that goes back to the advantages of homeschooling.
Yeah. Another great advantage that I personally love is that we can plan a vacation whenever we want. We're not stuck in going where everyone goes on spring break, or when they have a summer break, everyone goes at the same time. No, we can go to the park or to the zoo on a Tuesday afternoon when ain't nobody else there.
Wait, is she praising the Lord over there because she's going to the zoo?
Jesus.
So they went to the Creation Museum today or yesterday,
wait
so
a
they're all
minute.
fresh off of it.
And also
They're fresh off a field trip.
And also, Nathan, I just want to clarify that the biggest advantage for you is vacation. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's anytime. It's
Vacation at any time. Yeah.
No, I miss vacations. I can't go on vacations. Cows are too demanding.
Like we were saying, I literally just took off work today and we went to a creation museum here in Dallas, Texas.
That's
awesome.
It was a homeschool event or a homeschool day for that. So guess what? I took off for the day and I was like, hey, let's go do this field trip and teach our children about creation and things like that.
But there was a downside to today's field trip. It was a homeschool day, so it was packed.
Yep.
And
with turds.
I've never been more annoyed with homeschoolers in my life.
Because other kids are turds.
Many of y'all are homeschooling.
Because other kids are bad. Even if they're homeschool kids, they're bad too.
But I will say, getting back to, you don't have to be Christian to homeschool, but if you are a Christian, homeschooling is vitally important in my opinion, because depending on what the secular worldview, as a Christian, you can be a young earther, an old earther. It all depends on how far you dive into it, but you'll find curriculums for young earth theories or old earth, and you don't get a secular worldview crammed down your throat, and you have to try to find a way to match the worldview in your Christian view. They don't mesh all the time, and it just definitely helps out, and I love it. And I'm sure our kids appreciate it too.
Well, that's why I like master books though, because I mean it's for a living education, so it literally puts like everyday life into your teaching, and I think that's fantastic. So that's,
And
it's awesome.
We're blessed in Missouri. They're not homeschool. What you got to have? How many hours of?
1,000 hours. You need 600 core hours, so that's like your normal math, history, science, reading, language arts, the cores, and then you have 400 non-core hours. So anything like
farm chores or PE.
Yeah,
feeding chickens, cleaning stuff up.
It's hard work. It really is. As my kids are, crazy in the background.
But we're pretty blessed on where we live, and we have a great church community. We got a lot of homeschool families at church, and they'll do church days where we've got a gym at the church, so kids will go play basketball at the church, open gym, and just it's It's a good time.
It's fun.
You know what's funny is when you all talk about, the hours that you need per state, and Carmen, you're the one that actually recommended looking into all of that. I actually did before I even did this, put together this live. In Georgia, they don't even require for homeschooling the same amount of curriculum as they do in public school. So science is not recommended or required for homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have known that in school. That was the one I flunked.
See, with that though, Casey, it was for ours. It's core hours, so you can choose which core hours you do up until I think high school. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you could leave science completely off the table if you so choose. So in Missouri, it's just 600 core hours, and so that could be any of the cores. So you can predominantly focus on math and language arts if you so choose, and then do your 600 hours of just that. So there's no requirement on all of the ones that you have to do. It's just you have to get these hours of these group of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our children learn science quite often. I mean, they've learned the reproductive.
Yeah. Farm is great for that.
Where did that animal just come out of?
They've seen the dissection of a rabbit.
I have a funniest story ever. So our daughter, so they already know how the rabbits breed. We've never gotten deep into it. Okay, they're all under 9, but they know pretty much the gist.
Yeah.
So Nellie comes up to me one day and she's like, we breed the rabbits, and then just randomly it clicks and she's like, so does Daddy jump on you? So I was and this is me. Okay, I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, okay. He walked away.
At least it wasn't chickens, and she asked if y'all bump cloacas.
Oh, that's true. No,
she was so innocent about it. She's like, so he just jumps on you? And I'm like, pretty much. I'm nervous. So pretty much. And she just like, okay. And she walks away. And I'm just like,
never get married.
Hollis would ask that question. Hollis would be the one asking all the questions.
Yeah.
She never getting married. Nellie's never getting married. She's
our
on forever.
kids always talk about the cows or whatever, because we have to breed our cow Margot, and so Aubrey looks at me and she goes, "Mom, does that mean she has to be fertilized?" And I'm like, "Yep,
yes.
Fertilized." We're just gonna go with that.
That's awesome.
Well, look, the reality is on the farm, it probably makes parents more uncomfortable than anybody else because, well, for us, obviously we didn't grow up like this, but our kids, I mean, they've seen so many different animals breeding around this beach.
Yep.
Well, it doesn't help that Eric's like, Jonathan, my almost 14-year-old, he's like, Jonathan, you see Libby out there, right? She's one of our cows that she's a first timer. He's like, that heifer, her vulva's getting nice and thick. Have you been out there to look at her vulva lately?
Yeah,
You've been you gotta look at her vulva. If it's spring, she's gonna be getting ready to calve soon. And I'm like, dude, this is just too much information here. I mean, look, thankfully they haven't related that to whatever. But he's like, she's got a thick vulva.
Checked to see if you were.
Stop. Mm-mm. She got a thick vulva. He's out there squeezing cows, and I'm like,
sounds like me.
Yeah, I mean, he did a video on one of our cows birthing, and he was like, first you gotta squeeze it, see if it's nice and spongy. And I'm like, dude, you're putting that in the video? He's like, yeah, I am. I was like, oh my.
It's educational videos for anybody that wants to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the same thing. I even posted it on Facebook. I was like, hey, y'all, look. She's getting bigger. Click,
Look at the discharge.
Look, she's got discharge coming out. We're closer.
Well, that's not, yeah. Yours muted. You're muted, Casey, so we can't hear you. Can't hear you.
You muted yourself.
I was with us today. I actually was watching your live, Chelsea, when that was happening. I was like, oh.
Well,
Eric will say, have you checked the cow's teats today? Because it fills in with milk right before she's getting ready to calve. So you see that nipple's real thin. Feel the nipple, son. And I'm like, cool, I got to get out of here. I'm walking away.
I'm sure
Too
you
much.
two saw my new cup, right? You see that? My friend
Yes.
from church, she goes, I saw this and thought of you. Y'all, it's literally cow cup and it's got teats in the butter. Like, it's the funniest thing in the world. It's like my favorite cup now.
Well, look, I mean, here's the thing though, especially when you look at the sciences of all these animals, one, it helps you understand how meticulous and detailed God was in creating all these animals. But guess what? Any human being that is also having a problem getting pregnant, somebody did that same exact thing to humans to figure out when it was the right time to get them pregnant. It's science.
Nobody wants to talk about that.
It's science.
Do you have any more questions, Casey?
That's the reality of it. Hey, look, if you want the down and dirty, bro.
Christian homeschooling discussion
This
tonight.
is better. This is a good. Yeah, I like before.
No, I am going to say for those in the chat, because I don't want to keep everybody all night. If you want to say more about this discussion, make sure you give a thumbs up and like below, and we'll do like a part 2. I'll kind of wrangle all these 3 couples back together. We can dive deeper into it. But y'all, thank you for coming on the live. Y'all, thank you for tuning in the live. I think we still have, besides the photo box behind me, we still have
She was back.
she went back. She went. Thank you for coming in. Thank y'all for coming on the live. If y'all have any questions, comment below, and I'm gonna kind of tag, Monica, Eric, Chelsea, Mike, Carmen, Nathan, so they can answer it for you, or reach out to them on social media. Go and follow them on social media and ask them questions. So, y'all, thank you for stopping in. I'll see you next Tuesday on the live.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.